Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is
Pat O.
Pat O. Happy President's Day. How was your weekend?
Happy President's Day to you too, Ashers. My weekend was it was all right. It was a lot of work, a lot of stuff going on, right? We got the Frogman Festival is nigh. It's just about upon
Yes.
us. So had that the Y2K stuff. There was I had a D&D game yesterday. Got a even more important D&D game coming up at the end of March in Lake Geneva for GaryCon, and just lots of shit. So, what did I want to talk about? Saw the new Ant-Man movie. There's a lot of discourse on the internet about how it sucks, and I am here to tell you, listeners, it does not suck. I thought it was really good. I'm a big fan of the MCU. So this is them. The last couple MCU movies have just been kind of introducing new characters or just kind of doing whatever, and this is the official start of like the next mythos, the next kind of like larger scale story, the Infinity Stone saga from the previous one. And this kind of brings the Kang stuff to the forefront and sets that all up. And it was good. And, people bitch because some of the Marvel movies are too connected, and then some people bitch because they're not connected enough. And this was a nice hybrid of both. And I highly, highly recommend it. Um, Saturday, I went to a Candace, who does all of our graphic design stuff, all of my graphic design stuff at least. Um, it was her second annual 29th birthday.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, and I know I mentioned this on Twitter, but I'm going to repeat it for a much larger audience. There's nothing that makes a 41 going on 42-year-old man happier than being invited to a young girl's 30th birthday party. It made me feel virile and relevant, and I absolutely loved it. So please,
Was it
listener.
a good party?
Yeah, I wasn't there for too long, but it was good. It was so I met Candace through filmmaking. She used to do costumes on movies and stuff, and we kind of became friends through that. And so it was a lot of movie people, and which was good. And we talked movie stuff. Movie stuff is happening. And I know towards the end of last year, I had said on the show that my goal for 2023 is to not do another 48-hour film because I wanted to be working on a full length, and that's becoming more and more of a reality on a daily basis. So that was cool. It was cool to kind of hang out with those people and talk shop and shit. So that was cool. And then Saturday night after that, I kind of pieced out a little early because I had to come home and record the Y2K stuff for the next couple weeks, and came home, popped an edible. All right, I'm gonna sit down and talk to Danny. And we're like we're not even like doing the show yet. We were talking about he read the book on giants that I read. So we're sitting there starting to get high, talking about fucking giants, and the power goes out in the whole entire neighborhood.
Yay.
Yeah. And so that was something I had to deal with. I had a house full of children, and it's 8:30, 9 o'clock at night on a Saturday, and we've got no electricity. And it was good because I had to deal with that. And there's been so much going on lately that's kind of I don't know, just paranoia and just like stuff happening. And are we in the middle of a disaster? Are we not in the middle of a disaster? Is shit going down? That when something very concrete did happen, like we lost power, and luckily it was temporary, and it was only for a couple hours, and it was only our neighborhood. It's not like the phones went down or anything. We were able to, that's the first thing I did was check my cell phone, and like, okay, my cell phone works. We weren't hit with an EMP, but I just kind of okay. Like, the kids are like, "Oh, what's going on?" I'm like, "All right, well, here's a flashlight. You take a flashlight. Allison, you do this. Connor, you come here. You help me. Put new flashlights in the battery. Put new batteries in the flashlights and shit." And like mobilized everyone, and we responded to it. We didn't just kind of sit there in the dark and fucking like freak out or anything. We took control of the situation. We turned it around. And within about 20 minutes, everyone was kind of calmed down and like cool and like, all right, we're fine. And everyone's devices were in low battery mode. And, I had my wife on the internet checking out like what ComEd was saying about, how long it was going to take for the power to come back on and what neighborhoods were affected. It wasn't widespread. Okay, that's good. This is just kind of an isolated, localized thing. It's not like the grid collapsed or something. It was, I'm not trying to act like it was a fucking emergency preparedness drill, but in a small way, it kind of was. And, I don't consider myself to be too much of a prepper or anything. But it was nice to see that we handled that really, really well. It was like a fire drill, I guess you'd say. You know what I mean?
What's the
Uh,
longest amount of time you've ever gone without power?
a fucking week.
Yeah.
It was like 2 years ago. It went down for the summer, and what pissed me off about that was that we were fine. A light, like something happened to a big transformer or something, one neighborhood over, and they had to shut our power off to work on theirs. So it was off and on very intermittently. And we would get little notifications like, "Oh, it's coming back on for a little bit," and everyone charge everything, and then it would be off again. And it was in the middle of the summertime, and it was hot at night and shit. It was fucking miserable. I got drunk like that whole week. It's the only thing I could do. Is I had I'd go to work and I'd charge everything and then come home, and this was not that. But then we knew exactly what was going on. So it was an inconvenience, but it wasn't like troubling. You know what I mean? Having this kind of suddenly drop off in the middle of the night, there was until my wife got on. Her job was communications. You get on your phone and you see what you can figure out. Until we realized what was happening, it was like, well, what happened? Is this, one of my kids says, does this have something to do with the balloons? Like, no, probably not. This has nothing to do with anything. The power just goes out. Now, it wasn't storming here, so it's not like we were in the middle of a high winds or rain or anything. So at first that was a little concerning because you don't know why this happened. And of course, I'm a very creative person, so I am entertaining a million and one possibilities at once. But it ended up being like absolutely not. It's just whatever. It was back on in like an hour and a half. So an inconvenience. But I learned a lot from it too because I realized like all my good shit's in the garage. So like all we had was like a couple flashlights laying around the house. I didn't have my emergency radio or anything like that. So I don't know. That was Saturday, and that was very. It was so then. By the time everything comes back on, and of course my computer crashed because it turned off in the middle of all this. I got to get that up and running. And Daniel's on his side doing his thing. By the time we actually sat down to record, we were both incredibly fucking stoned. And those two episodes, I'll just, if you're someone that listens to both podcasts, I'm just warning you right now. They're very short and they're not bad, but we're way more fucked up than we planned on being. And
What are they about?
so we did the White Noise. Coincidentally enough, the movie filmed in East Palestine, Ohio, about a train derailment that causes an airborne toxic event. We watched that. That's on Netflix right now. And then we've been going through all the Edgar Wright movies, and we finally got around to watching the documentary that he did about the Sparks Brothers, which they're I don't want to. They're not British because they're actually from America, but they're just like a pop group that's been around for like 50 years and never had a whole lot of success themselves, but they've kind of had a ripple effect and they influenced a lot of people. And it's just kind of a documentary about them over the years. So, yeah, that was Saturday. And then what was yesterday was D&D, which I'm never doing in a bar again because I'm fucking too old for that. People were hammered and it was loud. I'm at the point, I was explaining this to my kid, like, I turned 42 in like a month. Like I'm at the point now where I'm not deaf, but I'm like, what? Like fucking my hearing isn't what it used to be, especially playing in bands for so long. Like it was just too loud and too dark.
Are you sure you're not deaf?
What?
Are you see? Just saying. I mean,
I'm not. My headphones are up really loud right now. Like I'm not deaf, but it's just like it was too loud in there, and I feel like yelling at people. Like, all right, what's your hit modifier? I'm not going to yell into my microphone, but like, it's just I'm done doing. We're still going to play D&D, but I think we're just going to do it in my kitchen. And then when the weather changes, I'll set up the garage and we can do it in the garage like real nerds. But I'm
sure.
no offense against fucking Mike. He's been a great host, but I'm not doing the bar thing anymore. No more D&D up at Rock Island. I'm sorry, I'm too old for that shit.
Okay.
So, how was your weekend? What'd you get up to?
Oh,
You
God.
are you not? Are we no longer escape bros?
For a very short time, we are still escape bros. But I got a new car,
Congratulations.
and I am getting used to having a different car. And the unfortunate part about it is that it was my mom's car. That part's not unfortunate. My mom has money, so she's good at taking, and she's good at taking care of her stuff. So I got a good car for a great deal. No worries, right?
Hmm.
Loaded up with all the bells and whistles. Just a little bit older. It's a 2017. Ooh, you know. But because it's her car, she still has like some type of entitlement to it, which has been really unfortunate. So like I went and I took my daughter out driving around in the new car because I am getting used to it. It's a lot smaller. It's still an SUV, but it's a lot, like I said, me and Pato have Ford Escapes. And I have a Chevy Trax now. It's smaller than the Ford
Hmm.
Escape. And so I'm getting used to like how it works. Obviously it's newer, so it's a lot stiffer and it just doesn't drive the same way that my car does. So I'm getting used to it and I'm like explaining that to her.
It's got working brakes.
Yeah, the brakes work fine.
The
Yeah.
brakes don't start on fire. I was like, how
Yeah,
the fuck
yeah.
am I supposed to light my cigarette without
I
my
know.
brakes on fire?
It's all nice and it's got all this shit that like tells you like there's like a little like sensor that tells me if I'm like too close to the car in front of me, and my fucking little lights pop up on my side view mirrors if there's a car beside me, and
Oh, I hate those. Yeah,
all
because you're
kinds of
like,
new stuff
people pass you in traffic all the fucking time. I don't
all
need
the
to be
time.
notified because someone's in the lane next to me.
And then it comes on,
Yeah,
right? And it tells you. And
right.
then, like, just like I'm learning how to take my turns. I'm a pretty, for somebody that doesn't drive a bunch, because I don't, I've got PTSD. I'm a pretty aggressive driver locally.
Mm.
And so I'm used to being like rough and rugged with my car. And I'm like, not there yet with my new car. So I'm just like explaining that to my mom. I'm like, I don't know what speed I can take a turn at yet. Like, I haven't gotten used to that. And she's like, you just must be a bad driver. I don't know. And I'm like, what are you talking? I'm like, why? Because I've just now started driving a car today that I've never driven before.
Sure.
It's
That's
not
why I
my
don't like test driving. Like, I understand the concept behind it,
Yeah,
but
it's
I'm
just not
not
going to
going to
feel
have a good
good.
experience if you just throw me in a fucking car.
Right.
Like,
I've never driven. Right. Give me like
right,
2 days,
exactly.
you
Exactly.
know.
Yeah.
And now I'm used to driving it, but yeah. So I mean, I still have to, she'll be like, "How's the car?" She'll call me today and ask me how the car is, and I'm so sick of talking to my mom about cars. It's not even funny. Um, but I got a new car, and that was exciting. Um, and then I also I watched a couple movies this weekend.
What'd you look at?
Oh man, I watched 3 movies. I watched the first 2 Star Wars movies, and what I mean by that is A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. I've never watched Star Wars.
Okay. What'd you think?
It's not very good. I don't understand why people like it. I I mean, it's been explained to me. Listen, I get it. As somebody that grew up never watching Star Wars before and hearing all the references, I mean, I get it. I get the whole thing, right? It's this whole
Hmm.
story. I get it. But like I could watch that story in a totally different movie that's a lot better, right? And so that's, and I know some of the audience right now is like, wow, I know you guys think I'm a bitch because I don't like Star Wars, but I don't. I'm sorry. It's just I don't understand why people get so fucking into it. Like, if you have to take fucking 9 movies and how many other fucking one-off and spin-offs and series and books to tell me a fucking story, something's wrong with your storytelling.
Oh, baby. I could totally. I'm gonna let you have this moment, but if the heat gets to be too much, I could dish up a hot take that will totally take you out of the fucking spotlight.
On Star Wars?
And yes, and get me fucking completely banned from everything. I
That's
mean,
not
we won't get invited to the fucking Frogman thing. Jeff will sincerely fucking rescind his offer to both of us. Fucking if I let this hot take out of the bottle. So
Jeff Craig,
I'll
are you a
shelve it
Star
for now.
Wars fan? I'm curious. He'll text me. He'll let me know if he's a Star Wars fan.
Me? No, I am. Yeah, definitely.
No, Jeff Craig. This is
Oh, I assume
directed at
so.
Jeff Craig.
Yeah, he's age appropriate for it. I think he would be.
I don't know. We'll see. I just it was okay. It wasn't. I'm never gonna. I mean, I'm gonna finish the first trilogy. Okay,
Sure.
I am. But like, I hear that like The Empire Strikes Back is like the absolute best Star Wars movie that there is. So if that's the best you got, ugh.
The first 20 minutes of Jedi are pretty awesome, but then it's I don't know. There if you don't like the first one, if you don't like Star Wars, that self-contained story
Right.
of just them then it's you know
I
what
just
I
don't
think
like it.
and this is what I think it is. I think for in your case, you're coming into it just way too late. If
I
you
agree.
didn't if you didn't grow up with those movies as a kid, then you have no nostalgia to look back on. There's no like emotional connection. It's like hearing the Beatles for the first time in 2023 and being like, "Who the fuck cares about this? This is shit."
Yeah.
You're
At
not
30.
gonna,
Right.
you can't appreciate it. You're just like,
Yeah.
"Oh, whatever." You don't know what the world was like before it. You can't appreciate the impact that it made and all this stuff. So, whatever, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, and I've said that, and I've said that I'm not going to watch them because that ship has sailed. I just missed my mark. But here I am. Somebody has recommended it to me endlessly, so I am giving it a shot. I'm giving it a shot, and it's just, but I don't give a shit about politics, like first and foremost, and that's like all these movies are. And I don't. The person that recommended them to me was like, "But it's not about politics." No, it's straight up like it's politics. Like, what are you
Oh, it
talking
gets
about?
worse. The prequels are all about trade
Politics.
federation and
Yeah,
the clones and shit, so they don't have to fight. Yeah, it gets way more into politics than you ever think that it would,
yeah.
and it's
Yeah,
just and it
and
kills it. Yeah,
I was gonna watch it in that order. I was gonna watch it from the prequels up.
you wouldn't even made it through the first one.
Listen, so I did start watching The Phantom Menace,
Yeah.
and I turned it off 30 minutes
Yes.
into it. I was like, "This is fucking awful," but I liked A New Hope. It was okay. The Empire Strikes Back. It was all right. Some people I don't like. Like, I don't like Han Solo, and that's what I was telling the person. I fucking hate Han Solo, and they're like, "Why? He's what?" I'm like, "Because he's a jerk off to Princess Leia," and I get that they end up together, but like my first thought process was that guy thought he was such hot shit. Immediately, my first instinct was I would peg him. I would peg him, and I'd go tell the whole fucking galaxy about it.
Oh
Is
my
what I would do.
god. Oh
To
my
knock him
god,
off
we
his fucking
need
high
to
horse.
fucking film this. You need to get one of your little fucking cucks, one of your houseboys to dress up like Han Solo, and you
And
dress
peg
up like
him.
an Ewok or a fucking whoever you want. This is a movie that we need to make, and we need to we need to shoot a 10-minute version of this, and we need to sell it on ManyVids. This is a fucking gold mine. I want to see you peg Han Solo. That is we're printing money. We're printing money here. We can have this done.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, we fucking film it Friday night and we sell copies of it at the convention on fucking Saturday. The
Well,
turnaround time, I can edit that shit on my iPhone. I will have that ready.
yeah,
Oh my
that was
god.
my first thought. I would peg Han Solo, and he'd do it because he's one of those assholes that's like, "Yeah, I'm kinky." He'd do it, but he
Oh,
would
you're
be
gonna make him
super
regret that
embarrassed about
decision.
it. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
He's
like I said,
gonna
I'd tell the whole fucking galaxy, every
I
goddamn one of them.
and I know what he'd say right before you popped it in. I got a bad feeling about this. Fucking before you red
You know,
sock that motherfucker.
I
Oh yeah,
didn't like him.
we'd have to make the strap on look like a fucking lightsaber, a red one. You would have to
That'd be
do
really
like a
cool.
Darth. Well, I guess with your red hair, maybe you
Every time I fucking plunge in, it goes. Zhoo.
could. Yeah, that's a sound effect I could get. I'm sure I could get that on iMovie and put that in there.
What a great, intelligent podcast you guys are listening to today. I'm sure that you're so happy that you tuned in. I hope it's your first time here. Get used to this.
Yeah, every podcast is somebody's first episode. So
And I do hope it's this one. But so there's other. I like Luke, as a character. My favorite characters though are C3PO and R2D2. And I just want a supercut of all their scenes. I love how fucking petty C3PO is. Like, he's such a fucking petty he is. He's so goddamn petty. And then R2D2 is just like a lost puppy. I mean, it's, that's
well,
what,
they're in all of them, so you're in luck there. If you do
good.
continue, they are the one through line with all 9 movies.
Thank
Is that
God.
yeah? Because they're
Yeah.
robots, so they don't age or die or anything like that.
Thank God, because it's the only people I like, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Again, I'll finish it out. I'll probably watch the last one this weekend. We'll see. But I also watched Megan.
What do you think of that?
It wasn't bad. I probably will never watch it again. I say that about a lot of
Do
movies.
you get the queer fascination with that movie? And I like to think that I have my finger on the pulse of that. When I appreciate camp, right? I had a very
Right.
long conversation with a trans filmmaker that I'm hoping to collaborate with about the different levels of camp and stuff. And I don't get the fascination with Megan. And SNL even did a skit about it, how the gays absolutely adore that movie. I don't know what it is.
Why?
I don't know. That's
What's
what I'm
gay
asking you. I
about
figured
it?
maybe you. I have no idea. I don't know if it's because she looks so weird or the way she dances or something. But like, I don't know. If you're listening and you can weigh in on this, please do.
Yeah, I don't understand that fascination with just Megan herself or like the
Yeah.
movie.
No, I think with the character or something or the way she dances or some shit. I have no idea. She's
I
become
mean,
kind of a gay icon for some reason. I don't get it.
that is weird. I think I don't understand that either. Because she's genderless. I don't know. I mean, technically, because she's a robot.
Did you?
I don't know.
So I was re-listening to the episode we did where I had just seen Megan, and I talked about how it kind of caught me off guard that there wasn't one reference about fucking that doll. Did you feel that was noticeably absent, or am I just a pervert?
Well, so I can understand it from like the toy company's perspective. They really didn't want to put that idea out there at all. But there was that boy that she killed that I thought, for sure, I thought that he was going to try to fuck that doll.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like I mean, he didn't, but he like took her pants off and like got on top of her, and then like she killed him. So
Oh, I might have missed that. Okay.
so I thought for sure, and I was like, I don't want to see that. He's also a child, and it looks like a child, and this is
Yeah. No, no,
weird.
no. No, I'm not like into the pederast shit, but it just
Yeah.
seems like that story in a different set of hands could have very easily had some kind of nerdy lab character that
Oh, absolutely.
leers at her or something that she revenge kills. Or, because she is kind of like an anti-hero. She only really kills like unlikable characters. So,
Right.
yeah, you know what I mean? So one of those victims could have very easily been some pervy guy that has ill intentions for the, 4 foot tall latex doll that looks like the fucking,
Yeah, like if the fucking toy company like owner dude, if he was like a fucking weirdo about the doll and was like groping up on it behind the scenes or something, and then she killed him, that would have been great.
right. Or even if there was a throwaway line about how we could take the mold for this and it would have other applications in the adult industry. You know what I mean? Like
Right. Something.
that would have been something that I think would have made sense that I almost expected and they didn't do. Which is fine. I mean,
Yeah.
it very much strove for PG-13.
Which you're right, is fine, and it was okay for what it was. I expected to really hate it, but it kept my attention the whole movie. Like I was very much interested in what was happening. But I don't get why people are like really obsessed with it. Like it's already greenlit for a sequel, and I'm like, why? It's fine. Just leave it alone. If you just left it alone, it'd be fine the way it is. But you're not going to do that, are you?
It made money, because I think here's the thing: it was Bloomhouse, so they purposely structured it so that it would be profitable. It didn't. There's like no one famous in it, with the exception of like Allison Williams. So there's no stars or anything, and they made a PG-13 horror movie that came out in the middle of the winter when no one's got anything going on, and it probably cost 10 million to make and it made 25 at the box office, 30. Like it was profitable, but it wasn't like a fucking huge overnight success or anything. So yeah, they'll do a sequel,
I hate that.
that's all it takes for franchises to get born. And then you figure maybe hopefully the franchises get more and more profitable as they go because you have a long enough timeline to attract more viewers.
Yeah, it's just still. I mean, it still is like obviously hanging out in the shadow of Chucky. And I get it's two
Yeah.
different concepts, but not really because Chucky also did the AI thing that was just kind of fucked up. You know, we didn't need more of that. We already have it. I don't know.
Right. It was
But it was okay. Like I said, it
yeah.
kept my attention. It's not the worst piece of shit I've ever seen. I liked it better than Star Wars. So,
Oh wow. I
You
can't
know,
defend you there. Well, here, you want my hot take? You want me just to fucking say it?
go ahead, spill your hot take.
I think Harry Potter is better than Star Wars.
Ooh, Harry Potter's awful.
Exactly. So fucking. But I'll say this. You know what? I've read the first of all the books are good. The movies you have 8 movies. I think there's 7 or 8 Harry Potter movies, and they tell a more epic, coherent story than you look at all 9 Star Wars movies and they're shit. Both have disappointing prequels. The Fantastic Beasts stuff is like garbage. I don't like any of that, and the Star Wars prequels are terrible. But I feel like the characters' journeys and the emotional core and the what it has to say about bravery and heroism and rising to challenges and sacrifice, that Harry Potter tells a better, more emotionally resonant story than Star Wars does. And both are high fantasy, sure, but the Potter stuff, as much as J.K. Rowling is deplorable, and I'm not a huge fan of George Lucas either, but she definitely wins that fucking contest about who's a bigger shithead. Um, all that stuff aside, I think that when you talk about like young adults, fantasy, coming of age stories, that Harry Potter definitely fucking blows Star Wars out of the water.
I will say, because I think that now I've publicly denounced Star Wars and Harry Potter. So you guys are probably mad at me. Lord of the Rings fucks. Let me tell you, Lord of the Rings is just fine.
I know. I don't like that at all.
See,
That's my
here's the
least favorite of the 3.
problem. Really?
Yeah,
So
Lord of the
you
Rings
should
is
know that.
fucking boring. The
I
books are
liked it.
boring.
I was into it.
It's like
But
it's
I have that nostalgia factor. It came out when I was a kid. All right. It was the first major book series I'd ever read in middle school, was, all of them. So I mean, it carries that nostalgia for someone like me. Whereas like Star Wars clearly is going to carry that nostalgia for someone that like grew up in the 80s, or whatever. I was born in the 80s. It's just a generational deal. And then Harry Potter typically is going to slap for people kind of in between the 90s and the 2000s.
I don't know, I'm old as fuck. The only thing I like about Lord of the Rings are the fucking Led Zeppelin songs written about them. You know what I mean? They're not. It's just it's kind of it to me. It's old. And I know your approach to it is you're just looking at the movies. I was old enough to read the books before the movies came out. So where I had read the books before the movies came out. So I went to go see the movies and I was like, yeah. And I thought the books were boring in the first time around. And then you go see the movies and you're like, oh, they're all 3.5 hour fucking shit with.
No, I read the books in between the Fellowship and the Two Towers. So
Yeah,
I watched the movie.
no, I mean, like I had read them like in high school, like
Yeah.
before all that shit came out. So I was familiar with it. And I even when I read them just to read them, not knowing that there was movies coming, I was like, this is what people are fucking all excited about. I think it's kind of going back to that Beatles thing where I can appreciate Lord of the Rings as being groundbreaking as far as fantasy goes. And being a Dungeons and Dragons player, Dungeons and Dragons exists because of Lord of the Rings, because Gary Gygax and all those dudes, they were military battle reenactment people, right? They used to use miniatures and reenact like Civil War battles, and then they got the idea of, well, what if we reenacted battles from like Lord of the Rings with wizards and orcs and elves and dwarves and shit? So they came up with character classes for those mythical creatures, and then that kind of was how Dungeons and Dragons came to be. So I definitely I get the significance of it, but I wouldn't want to watch those movies either.
Yeah,
You
I'm not
know.
a and I'm not a fantasy type of person. Like I'm typically like I hear that kind of stuff and I'm like, "Oh god, I cringe. It's cringy." Um but I really did legitimately enjoy Lord of the Rings. But you, whoever you are listening to this, I just want to tell you, just because I don't like something that you fucking love doesn't mean that you're wrong for fucking loving it. And don't let me make you feel bad for enjoying the things that you enjoy.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not that person. Like, I don't want to make anybody feel like that you are lesser than or you are dumb for enjoying the thing that you enjoy, because you are uniquely you and you like it for whatever reason that you like it. And that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so fucking weird when people get into like huge battles over stuff like that and shit on people for liking whatever kind of media it is that they enjoy. I don't know. It's weird. It's very high schoolish.
I think you're absolutely right there. I used to argue about that stuff. I totally used to argue about that stuff when I was in high school.
Yeah,
I got older and now I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? You like what you like and that's fine. You know,
exactly.
there's
And
plenty of room
I
for everybody.
would like to peg Han Solo. So
Oh, I
there's
would like
that.
to watch you peg Gonzalo. I think that's a fucking. My birthday's coming up in April.
Stop.
Can you? I'll tell
It's
you
got
what.
to be
Show up.
Han Solo. It's the fact that he's such an asshole and he thinks he's so desirable. And
All
it's
right, I'll
like,
tell you what. If you show up to Frogman Fest with a black vest on, looking like a scruffy-looking nerf herder, and act like an asshole, maybe she'll push your shit in back at the hotel room.
I might, yeah. I might. Don't say that. There's gonna be so many Han Solos at the fucking Frogman
Oh,
Festival.
first, dude, if one shows up, I think that we just need one to show up.
No.
Just one.
Jeez.
Somebody show
Anyway.
up dressed like. I want this to be a recurring thing for all of our events because we got at least 3 events this year that
At
I'm
least
going
one
to.
Han Solo.
And I would love for someone to show up dressed up like Han Solo. And that's the cool thing is that you're going to this weird like event shit. Like no one's gonna blink an eye if you show up dressed like a Star Wars character.
No,
But
not at
like,
all.
just do it. I want at least one person at every event, at least to show up dressed like Han Solo and be like, "What's up?" And then you can give them the American Gladiator thumbs up or thumbs down. You know.
It's gonna be thumbs down each and every time.
No, not necessarily. You might be the one. You might be the one to win her heart. And I'll say this: if you're really interested, if you're really serious about it, bring your own BYO-SO. Bring your own strap on because only you know what's going to fit you. Don't leave it to her to bring one. It might be too big or it might be too small. So bring your own. Find out what your gauge is, and show up.
You got about a week and a half. Start measuring that butthole of yours.
Figure out who you are as a person. Do a little deep diving self exploration and ask yourself the really tough questions. You know, how much am I willing to fucking whatever? I'm done with this.
Brought it back up again.
I'm done with this.
Anyway, you want some news?
Sure.
And other news besides me pegging Han Solo. I thought that this was really topical considering last week's episode. A man in China won the lottery back in 2021, right? He hit the lottery for 1.5 million, which is, we've heard bigger. We've seen bigger.
Sure.
But he hid it from his wife, and she just found out about it. So what does she do? She files for divorce, and now he has to pay her back 66% of those winnings.
Man.
So, just to go off of the lottery curse and if it exists or not, well, I mean, maybe don't like hide $1.5 million from your wife.
Yeah, chicks don't find that shit amusing.
No, not at all. And he also used some of those funds to pay like the first year. He purchased an apartment for his first wife.
See, what a heart of gold, this guy.
You know what I mean? He was trying to do the right thing, except for disclose it to the one woman he should have. So now he is, he's not very happy right now with himself. So is he cursed? Well, no. He's a product of his own decisions.
Correct. Yeah. If he's got any kind of curses, that he's got too big of a heart and he can't say goodbye. You know,
Yep, that's what it is. That's all I had though. Really, there hasn't been a whole bunch happening lately. People are still talking about the fucking train derailment. There's really nothing new there. People are still talking about the balloons. There's really nothing new there either.
right? Which is actually almost newsworthy in and of itself. Is that we really have not gotten more info on that whole situation. I sent you it might have even been before the show dropped on Wednesday, but of all people, Marco Rubio came out of one of their hearings and talked to the press about that. And I mean, he's a former Republican presidential candidate and senator down in Florida, and he had said that he was in one of the security briefings about what had happened last weekend with those 3 objects being shot down at various points over North America. And he had said that, 95% of what he heard in that briefing could be made public immediately with no kind of consequence to national security, and that he did not understand why it was not being made public. And now maybe just being a Republican congressman, maybe he was being critical of the Biden administration. I don't know. I don't want to get involved in that politics. But I thought that was kind of interesting, was that you had a guy walk out of one of those meetings and say, I don't know why they're not telling you guys. I'm sorry. There's nothing groundbreaking here. You know what I mean? And I think that is a good question. Like, we haven't heard anything. There is nothing new. The most concrete explanation that I saw, and Ashers, I sent you a link to this today on Twitter, is the Weekly World News theorized that aliens are abducting moose from Alaska, and that's what's going on here. So at least somebody's trying to come up with an explanation.
Clearly, yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to throw this out there that my dream job is to be the CIA plant working at Weekly World News. Weekly World News might be a fucking psyop for all I want, but I goddamn, I wish I worked there.
Well,
I think I've proven this episode alone I'm humorous enough. I could be in the writer's room at Weekly World News, you know. But anyway.
I mean, Biden did come forward and he said, look, they are some type of balloons. We don't really know exactly where they are right now. We don't believe that they're connected to any type of particular country, that they're probably just private, maybe from private studies or private use or whatever. He said that after the Chinese spy balloon situation, Canada, well, NORAD, they all got together at NORAD and decided, hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and turn our sensors up a little bit. And they did. Right. And so now they're seeing more shit in the sky than they were before.
Yes. So I actually had this conversation with my son yesterday because we were driving around and he asked me point blank, whatever happened with all that? Is that all that stuff done now? And I told him exactly that. Imagine a search criteria, and you're on CarMax and you're looking for a new car, and you say, I want a red 1989 Chevy Cavalier, right? And it's going to show you a half dozen cars. Well, right. What NORAD had done post the Chinese weather balloon incident a couple weeks back was that they changed their search criteria to just say, I want a red car. And boom, now it populated a bunch of other possibilities. And that's why we were chasing fucking random shit all over the sky. That's one explanation. Whether or not that's true, or that's just a convenient excuse, I don't know. We don't know. You know, who knows?
Well,
somebody does, but not us.
Did you have something you wanted to share?
Yeah, I had another story that I thought was interesting. A metal detectorist, if you I had no idea such a thing existed, but a metal detectorist.
A metal detective?
No, metal detectorist.
Oh, that's a missed opportunity.
And this story is from Fortune magazine. So this isn't some like fucking random like internet.
It's not Weekly World News.
Yeah, exactly. This is the language that they're using. They're suing the FBI, claiming that they alerted the FBI to 7 tons of Civil War era gold, and they took it away in a secret overnight dig. Dennis Parada, co-founder of the treasure hunting outfit Finders Keepers, should have fucking took his own advice, and his son spent years looking for the fabled gold of Dent's Run, eventually guiding the FBI to a remote woodland site 135 miles northeast of Pittsburgh, where they say their instruments identified a large quantity of metal. The FBI brought in a geophysical consulting firm whose sensitive equipment detected 7 to 9 ton mass suggestive of gold. So the FBI comes in, they do their investigation, and then they left and they said that there was no gold. So Parada was not content with that explanation. He obtained the video and other FBI records through Freedom of Information Act lawsuit, hoping they would help answer lingering questions about what took place at Dent's Run 5 years ago. Parada was mostly kept away from the dig site while the FBI did its work. He suspects the agency conducted a clandestine overnight dig between the first and second days of the court-authorized excavation, found the gold and spirited away. Residents had previously told of hearing backhoe and jackhammer overnight when the dig was supposed to have been paused, and seeing a convoy of FBI vehicles, including large armored trucks. The FBI has denied it conducted the overnight dig. Prada and the consultant, Warren Gettler, have focused on a handful of FBI photos and a company photo log that have them questioning the FBI's official gold dig timeline. At issue is the presence or absence of snow in the images and the timing of the storm that briefly disrupted operations. For example, an FBI image was supposed to have been taken about an hour after the squall. Does not show any snow on the large moss-covered boulder at the dig site. The same boulder is snow-covered in a photo that the FBI records indicate was taken the next morning, some 15 hours after the storm. They accused the FBI of altering the sequence of events to conceal an overnight excavation. So this outfit, Finders Keepers, it's a bunch of old dudes with metal detectors, and they go to like these Civil War battlefields and they try to dig up like artifacts, right? And read the whole story is available online, and they show the guy's office, and he's got like Civil War cannons and just different
Oh,
stuff that like he was able to find and dig up and all this shit, right? And
well,
there's
that's
some
lucrative.
monetary advantage to doing that. Well, then there's this story of gold that was being transported by the Union Army they were ambushed by Confederate soldiers, and this gold was lost, right? And it's been it's supposedly in this area outside of Pittsburgh, and it's been a legend for a couple hundred years. He said he found it. Well, for whatever fucking reason, he told the FBI about it.
Right.
Which, like, why not just dig it up, right? Well, he didn't
Right.
have the resources to dig it up. Whatever. He thought he was doing the right thing. He also thought that he was going to get a finder's fee or something, which is what his beef is with the FBI. If he thinks that they really found the money and they kept it for themselves, which for the most part he's okay with, but he thought they were going to throw him something on the back end, and they didn't, and they claimed they didn't find anything at all. And if you go to this story, and I've seen this story in a couple different places actually, which is why I'm bringing it up. They list all the inconsistencies with the FBI's reports, and there's hours that aren't accounted for and expense reports that aren't there and all this stuff that shows that at the very least there are irregularities with their reporting of the operation, right?
Sure.
Whether or not that means that they actually stole gold and ran away with it, okay, fine. But I think the takeaway from this one is don't trust the government.
Yeah.
I've,
Yeah. Maybe
I've,
don't like find treasure and then tell the government about it. I don't.
they're not going to give you a job. You know,
No, they're not.
I could do this episode I could do this show till I'm blue in the face. CIA is not going to hire me to write for Weekly World News. It ain't going to happen.
Oh my.
Right? I got to do it myself.
Yeah.
So if you find gold, don't think Uncle Sam's going to give you a pat in the back for it. They're just going to fucking take it. And they're not going to give you shit. And if they do give you shit, they're going to tax you on it, you fucking idiot.
I think that this is right. They're gonna get theirs no matter what. I think this was probably an inside job, like not necessarily the FBI itself, but I just think it was a couple of guys within the group who was like, "Hey, we got all this equipment. Let's just go dig this shit up and say, you know what, we didn't find anything."
Yeah, whoever answered the phone at the office that
right.
day.
Right, exactly. He's like, well, fuck this guy. It's fucking gold here. I can retire, you know?
Yeah, he Googled FBI and called Flowers by Irene. And then that guy picked up the phone. There's gold where? All right, yeah, we'll be right on it. Went out there with his cousin with a backhoe.
Right.
And,
got that shit out of there. And the actual FBI is like, we don't know nothing about any of this. I don't. And then everybody's like, yeah, sure you don't. Sure. Meanwhile, Flowers by Irene has really taken off lately. Have you seen them stocks?
Right.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, why would you? I don't know why you would call the government. That's really dumb. That's his own fault.
I'm sure he was being like, and not to talk shit about Dennis, but I'm sure he was just being blindly patriotic and thought that this was the thing to do. He thought that, because obviously he's like a Civil War historian, so he's got some kind of like American military fetish. I don't know this dude. I got to try to psychoanalyze him that deeply and come up with character flaws that may or may not even exist. I don't know, but I think if you find something good, don't expect a pat on the back all the time. Just take the win. Take the win. You found 7 tons of gold. Good for you. You and all your nerdy.
Yeah, good for you.
I'm calling this guy a fucking nerd, so listen up. You and your nerdy metal detectorist friends stumbled upon 7 tons of gold. Like, that's God sending you the boat. Like, just fucking take it, man. Don't.
I'm gonna get a metal detector and discover all the world's secrets. I'm gonna become a metal detectorist. You can live out your dream as a writer for Weekly World News, and I'll go live out my dream as a metal detectorist.
That pegs Han Solo.
That pegs on so.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, that's part of my dream too. Got to get it right.
I'll be a Han Solo detectorist.
Oh,
Um. Anyway, well, speaking of not trusting the government, and also speaking of shooting things out of the sky,
yeah.
Pato, what do you know about Roswell before?
What did I know about Roswell? Um, a couple things. So I'm gonna kind of get my Roswell talk out of the way, and then stand back and let you do your thing for this episode.
Okay.
Two things I wanted to bring up. I have never been to Roswell, but I've always wanted to go. And this is something that several ex girlfriends and my wife have been trying to do for years. For years. Every time, like, since I was like in my early 20s, and like, you have a girlfriend and like you plan little vacations and shit, they've always said, well, like, Pat, where do you want to go? And I've always said Roswell. And it's like I don't want to say it's geographically inaccessible, but it's not easy to get to. Like, you have to fly in to Tempe or something, and then drive there, and it's like a 5-hour drive, and then you get there, and there's basically one hotel, and there's not a lot to. There's like a Roswell museum. There's like a spaceship McDonald's or some shit, and they have the festival like around like the 4th of July every year. But
Yeah.
I've always wanted to go and never been able to pull it off. And it's kind of like my Waterloo or my Canaan, the promised land that I will never enter. And that to me is infinitely frustrating. Roswell has friend zoned me, not letting me in. So I don't know. I'm going to keep trying though, because eventually, if there's one thing I've learned in my 40s, is that people let down their defenses after enough decades, and you slip it in. So I will continue to try to go to Roswell every year, but who knows if it'll ever happen. And then as far as like what I know about it, like my familiarity with it, I was really thinking, and I think that I was like tangentially aware of it, but the first thing that like really clued me in on the whole story was the 1994 Showtime TV movie Roswell, the UFO cover up. It premiered on Showtime. We had Showtime. We had the good cable growing up. And it was 1994, so it's the year after X-Files premiered. So this stuff was kind of like seen as being profitable, and stars Kyle MacLachlan, Martin Sheen, and Dwight Yoakam. And I very, very much remember this movie and being fascinated with it, in particular because there's a portion of the movie towards the end that focuses on the U.S. Secretary of Defense, James Forrestal, and his apparent suicide, and that whole thing. And there's lots of conspiracy theories about him and what he may have been privy to, and if he really was, if he really did commit suicide, or if he was suicided by Men in Black, which is something that some other people claim. So, and the James Forrestal stuff pops up a lot. He's one of those kind of central figures to the early, especially the Dwight Eisenhower UFO stories, and he was mentioned in Behold the Pale Horse and all that. And so the circumstances surrounding his death are very hotly contested. And my first exposure to that was through the Roswell TV movie. So
Okay.
that's what I got.
Sure. Roswell was probably, I think, like a lot of us, probably my first deep dive into ufology.
Sure.
Especially, again, I've said it before. I guess I'll say it once more for everybody. Living so close to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, it is a local legend here that's where the Roswell crash debris and bodies are at. So it's not like it's something that I've been unfamiliar with, but it is something that I put down and didn't really pick back up again until just this week. So for many, many, many years. But it's interesting looking at it through the scope now than I did back before I am who I am now, and being kind of not skeptical. It's just that I need something concrete, and I can't just go, oh my gosh, so and so said that, and they're a nobody, so it must be real. So Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. You're not going to hear anything here that you've never heard anywhere else. I can assure you.
Right.
Um, you know, I didn't I didn't go to the base and go to Hangar 18 and prove that there's spaceships there and alien bodies or anything.
You didn't talk to the dude that you know at the laundromat that works at what's
Now
the
I have talked to people.
I know. Your base buddy that you do laundry with on Tuesdays.
I have a couple base buddies, and I will share some of that information here because it kind of checks out to what the general consensus about this is. So I mean, we'll get into that, but
Mhm.
let me pull my notes back up. I got so much here. Um, so big news was kind of striking the nation in June of 1947. UFO mania was hot. People loved their flying saucers. Well, they didn't necessarily love them. It's just that they were talking about them a lot, mostly because of the um, famous Kenneth Arnold sighting, which happened at Mount Rainier in Washington, in which case pilot Kenneth Arnold saw 9 UFOs kind of hanging out in tandem over Mount Rainier. And when that was reported, and he described them as flying
Flying
saucers.
saucers, yeah.
Right. And so, he kind of coined that term there. And then what occurred after that was a flood of probably, I mean, to date, right now, we're at like over 900 sightings
Mhm.
just in that short time. And again, what you probably had was not necessarily a flap going on, but people now had a place to report something to. Right. But old Mac Brazel of Roswell, New Mexico, old farmer Mac, didn't know anything about this. He didn't have no TV or radio or phone. He didn't even have a telephone. He had to get all of his information when he went into town, and he did so on looks like July the 7th. Went into town and found out that there was this big UFO craze going on, and he's like, "Hey, I got that on my farm." And went and told the local sheriff, "Look, here's some things that I picked up in and around my farm here. I think it's a UFO that I've been hearing all these fancy people talk about." So the sheriff then takes that report. Okay, let me go ahead and find out where this is here. I have an order of events. The sheriff took that guy's report. He reported it to the Air Force. The Air Force then assigned Jesse Marcel to go check it out. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Marcel did. He went out there and checked out the debris and whatnot and took as much as he could with him at that time. Marcel then went and reported it to Colonel William Blanchard. Colonel William Blanchard went and reported it to Roger Ramey from the Fort Worth Army Airfield, who then ordered the debris to be brought there. Okay. That is that. So remember some of these people because they continue to come into play, over and over again. What happened from there, okay, is that Walter Hott did a press release on July the 8th saying that a flying disc was recovered. And the local news fucking loved that shit and ran with it. That is the most famous headline probably ever, aside from maybe Kennedy getting shot and the Twin Towers coming down.
Right.
But within not even a 24-hour period, the very next morning, the Roswell Daily Report, I believe it was, had reported that, as a matter of fact, now the government officials are recanting what they said about the flying disc. It's actually a weather balloon.
Yeah, that's the picture that I remember is
them with the picture of the debris, the weather balloon debris.
Yeah, what's his name? Because that's who Kyle MacLachlan, Jesse Marcel. That's who Kyle MacLachlan played in the Roswell movie. Is that guy?
Right. So that is the famous. Right there, just in that little short 24-hour period, history was clearly made. So the U.S. government did come and they did retrieve what debris that they could from Farmer Mac's property, and things just kind of continued to get weirder and weirder. I mean, again, they were like, you know what? This is nothing. This is just a common weather balloon. Who cares? And you know what? People didn't care. Nothing happened after that. people just settled on, oh, okay, it was a weather balloon. And then Roswell was not a story until the 70s. And then it started picking up steam again because remember Jesse Marcel came out in the 70s saying that, well, you know what, you guys? This wasn't a weather balloon. It was actually aliens. It was extraterrestrial. Whatever we got there was not from this Earth. And then at that point, there were a couple of ufologists that decided to get on the case and write a book about it, which came out in the 1980s. I think it was called the Roswell Incident or something like that. I don't know.
UFO crash at Roswell. That's what the documentary was based on. But I'm sure several people have written books. So
they have, but the Roswell incident is really what propelled this, and it probably was it's the most famous, it's called the Roswell Incident. And it's written by Bill Moore and Charles Berlitz, and they had interviewed a bunch of people, well over 70 people about this, including Marcel. And a lot of information that we have to date comes from that book that came out in the 1980s. So now you're talking the 80s, and this is really blowing up, and now you're talking information that's 30 years old. Okay. But shit gets really fucking weird over the course of all of this. All right. So Jesse Marcel's son, ended up coming forward later and said that his father actually took him to the Brazel farm to go retrieve these products, and that what he remembers that it was like, okay, so basically what the official report says is that it was tinfoil, paper, rubber, and sticks. Okay, that's what they found on the property. That's what it was. Marcel's son said, well, it looked like foil. It was like some type of metal with some weird pinkish purple like hieroglyphics on it, some weird symbols on it. It's what he says he remembers. And he was, I believe, 9 at the time that he went. So definitely old enough to kind of remember, but young enough to be very impressionable and have a false memory. You know, especially growing up with all the hype. But yeah, Marcel came forward. You know, he did mention that, yes, whatever it wasn't of this earth, but he actually explicitly denied that there were any bodies found there. And that is one thing that people talk about with Roswell, is that you had so many witnesses that had seen bodies being recovered from the crash site. Again, this kind of became big news. So you just had regular civilian people that were showing up while they are clearing up the debris here. And the people that are showing up are saying that they saw bodies here. The government, the official report changed in 1994 when the U.S. government came out and said, you know what? We lied to you about Roswell. We lied. It wasn't just a regular weather balloon. It was a spy balloon from Project Mogul, and it was made to spy on Soviet nuclear sites. So that didn't help things either when the government came out and said that. Now, right now, all I'm doing, okay, the only picture that I'm trying to paint are the facts. So unless I have said otherwise, like the eyewitnesses seeing the bodies right now, these are just the facts that we have. These are what you will find if you go fill out a Freedom of Information Act. You don't need to, it's already out there about the Roswell report. These are the facts. All right. So there is one more official piece of paperwork that kind of came out, but it is kind of a gray area of whether or not it is official. So we're gonna wait there. So again, the government came out and said, yes, it was a secret spy balloon. We're sorry. And that was that. And then they left it at that. And that's all they have said about it going forward, and point blank period. That's the end. Case closed. Pato, have any comments so far up until this point on just the facts?
Nope. You're a rock star.
Okay. Those are just the facts. And, you know, when you read about it, it actually kind of makes sense, right? I mean, that's really not that far-fetched. I mean, hell, we've all seen that picture of the debris. I can believe that's a weather balloon. That's what it looks like. I mean, it just looks like trash. Doesn't look like anything cool.
Right.
It does. It just looks like a bucket.
Looks like garbage, yeah.
Right. Someone fucking dumped their bag of garbage and tore the bag up and laid it there with it. You know, that's what it looked like. So okay, cool, whatever. It could be a weather balloon. And then the government, hey, they even admitted, yeah, it was a spy balloon. We had those. So I fucking buy that. At least they were honest about something for once.
Mm-hmm.
But things still really didn't add up going forward. Things got even weirder when Walter Hott, the guy that delivered the press conference saying that this was a flying disc, and he claims that he was given the order to say that. He was told to say that. And then they immediately recanted because they didn't want this information getting out. But Walter came out and eventually in his lifetime signed two separate affidavits, official affidavits for his official report on how this situation went down. And what he said was, in the first one, he said that there was absolutely no way, fucking no way in hell, that Marcel and Blanchard misidentified a weather balloon. That is just not possible. They would have known immediately what it was because they were experts in that field. That's what they did. And there's just no way. But the second affidavit that came out that was actually released in 2005 after this man died, that was the only order. He would sign this affidavit, but he only wanted it released upon his death, was that he personally actually did see the UFO. He saw a UFO. It was egg shaped, all right, about 12 feet long, and he also saw 4 small bodies. So that's when the story really gets fucking weird, is because that is the man's word. That came from him. This isn't like just his grandchildren said this or whatever, where we have a lot of that in this story. We have a lot of people talking about their husbands and fathers and things like that later told them, disclosed things to them. This isn't secondhand information. This is actually what the guy fucking wrote down in an official document, said this. Anything else before we continue onto the
No, good stuff.
what ifs?
I'm listening.
It's just
to
me
you.
talking right now. Fuck,
no, but
are
that's
you?
fine. Hey, that was me during the intro, and I knocked it out of the park. You're doing fine.
I gotcha. So let's get into what the talk of the town is. All right.
Okay.
Here's the conspiracy part about it. Because now we've got these two things that, hey, guess what? They're not really adding up. Doesn't really make much sense. Why would they come out and say this was a flying disc immediately? Again, these are people that are experts in their field. Marcel, he graduated, in some type of, I don't know, craft, some bullshit. I don't know the degree. The guy knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And he had never seen anything like that before in his life. He was shocked by it. To go further, you had all these people that, again, reported constantly over and over again. We saw bodies being pulled from the crash site on the farm in Roswell and taken away. We saw that. And they all reported seeing the same thing. They were 3.5 feet to 4 feet tall. Okay. They had large round eyes. They had slits for noses. Pretty much your stereotypical gray is what they saw. Over and over and over again. Now, what the government had said, they said that this was not possible, that what they were actually remembering was a totally separate incident, something completely different that happened, that where they had crash test dummies in one of these balloons that crashed, and that people saw the crash test dummies, not the grays. Well, crash test dummies look like us. They don't look like gray aliens. They look like us, and they're about 6 feet tall. Big difference there. So, a lot of people, question that. How do all these people lie? One question that I saw posed, which was really interesting, was that it just kind of puts in a little bit of different perspective. Let's say that you had 100 people report this, and it was. There was a lot of people. I don't know exactly the numbers. It's really consistent, but let's just say it was 100 people. Okay, if all these 100 people, instead of witnessing a UFO crash cleanup site, if they were witnessing a murder, right, and they went to the trial, and they all described seeing the exact same fucking thing, wouldn't you then believe that's what they saw?
Well, the only thing I have to say about that is that if 100 people did witness a murder, they wouldn't all report it the same way. They would be completely different.
That's true.
That a bigger red flag for investigators is usually when people's stories kind of seamlessly corroborate each other's, because generally witnesses don't work like that. You know what I mean? Everyone's standing on a different. A car crash happens, right? And you interview people that were standing on all different corners of the intersection. They're all going to have completely different accounts of what happened. Not only
That's true.
because of their perspective in relation to the accident, but because what they were doing at the time, what was going through their mind, the way they handle stress, their fight or flight instincts. Everybody's going to have a different story to tell. They're going to emphasize different points. And when you have people's stories uh, completely parrot each other, that is a tip of the hat to investigators that maybe they made an effort to get their story straight, because stories
Maybe.
aren't usually straight, and that's very unscientific. That's me just repeating what I've heard in fucking true crime documentaries, right? So I don't even know how accurate that is. I've never interviewed people after car accidents, so maybe that's not entirely true. That's all that pops in my head when you say that. When you say there's 100 people that all have very eerily similar stories about what they witnessed, I don't know. Not,
But the
not that I don't believe in Roswell. I'm just saying,
the claim is that, but this is the claim here.
yeah,
The claim is not like what exactly it is that they saw in its entirety about them seeing grays or whatever. They saw bodies being pulled out from that area. The government saying no, they didn't. There were no bodies. So what's more likely, 100 people versus these 5 individuals that were working the case? I'm going to take that probably 100 people didn't misremember this as some
mm-hmm.
other obscure fucking event that took place. That's
Gotcha.
the logic that I'm going, yeah, right. And that's, kind of what I'm getting at. The physical descriptions themselves didn't really make any sense. But I mean, they all roughly reported the same thing. I don't know exactly what every single report said. I haven't read them. I don't know. But I do agree with that. If I think that if you were to sit down and read all those reports, they would all be slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
That would make sense to me. Because again, remember, folks, this is all stuff that came out after the fact. Many years later, 30 years later, after this had happened, people are now sharing their events. But some other things that did happen, Farmer Mac, he actually packed up and he left town. He fucking just straight up left. Now he had maintained to that day that to whenever that he always thought that whatever it was that they cleaned up, he didn't buy the balloon story. But then again, he's just a lowly farmer in Roswell, New Mexico. He wasn't anybody, but he just knows that the reaction that they had there, the fact that they wanted to clear up all the debris, they didn't want him to keep any things like that. They just acted strangely. He believed that there wasn't a balloon that fell there. But he gets up within a year and packs up and leaves town. And nobody really ever hears from him ever again. Some people think that he was intimidated by the government.
Yeah, I got it. Another thing that is weird too is why would they go back so many years later? Now, maybe this is just this miscalculation, right? Because if there's something that we've learned time and time again, is the government's just made up of people that make stupid decisions sometimes, right? Why would you admit to lying about the weather balloon thing only to come up with another story so many years later that doesn't necessarily that is also suspect? Because at this point, no one's going to believe anything you say, right?
Right.
What's the benefit? And now you're like doubling down on trying to. Was the Roswell heat too intense that the government suddenly decided in the 80s that they needed to come up with an explanation? Like, guys, I don't know how much longer we can. I don't know how many more decades we can sustain the heat from this Roswell thing. We might as well come clean, right? Like, who made that decision? Who said,
Yeah.
okay, enough's enough? We need to tell these people that this has, you know what I mean? Like, I can't, I don't know why you would. I don't think they had to. That to me seems like, is it more deflection? That to me is pretty suspect, you know? It was completely
Right. I think
unnecessary.
it's just because no. You're absolutely, please continue with the banter. I agree with that. I mean, it could be because people are kind of backtracking and some of the information that they're getting about all this is just inconsistent. It just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Because guess what? It's that first fucking press release that they had, man. I'm telling you. They immediately said it's a fucking flying saucer. And then they turned around and went, oh, never mind. It's just a weather balloon.
Yeah.
That's weird. That's fucking weird. Because if it was just a weather balloon, they would have been able to identify it immediately and said this is just a weather balloon. So I think them coming out later and saying that it was some type of spy balloon is their way to kind of cover that track and be like, well, we didn't really know what to say because we were doing super secret shit that we didn't want to admit to immediately. So we didn't want to be like, oh yeah, it's a balloon, and then have to explain what a balloon is to people. I don't know. You know? That's the only explanation that I can really come up with. I mean, they really damned themselves when they came out, and that's what they said. They said that. That wasn't just made up for the headlines. That wasn't like people in area reporting UFO sighting. It wasn't anything like that. The government came out and said, we have a flying disc in our possession. And then called a bunch of fucking people to verify that information. Because there's more people than just these couple guys. They had all kinds of experts come in and analyze the debris and whatever. And then within 24 hours, they're like, oh, yeah, it's just nothing.
Yeah, that only really makes sense if, you know, to the idea of we don't want to admit that this is a spy balloon, so we're going to pretend that it's fucking aliens. Like, what? Like, okay, so you're obviously in a clear enough headspace to realize that you want to control the public opinion of what is happening.
Right.
But your go-to is to say that you've made contact or have physical evidence of another alien species operating on this planet. Like that to me doesn't make sense. Like that's your fucking cover story? Is that because you don't want people to know that in the middle of a Cold War, post World War II, you have intelligence like operations going on? Like why would you want like that's like trying to put a fire out with gasoline. What the fuck? You know, that doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. It makes zero sense.
No, it doesn't at all. And it's like, why even say anything at all? We already don't believe you.
Well,
Why even say anything?
that's another thing that you really have to consider is why say anything at all? If it was nothing, if it was either a weather balloon or it was just a recovered piece of reconnaissance equipment, why even make a press release?
Yeah.
This is a small town in the middle of fucking nowhere, and in a time when our country was mostly middle of nowhere. Like this could have easily disappeared. And who would have known about it? The boots on the ground people, a handful of people. All right, a handful of farmers in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Right.
No one would. There was no GoPro video. No, they weren't worried about this going viral on Twitter. It could have just fucking everyone kept their mouth shut. But
Because everyone did initially, yeah.
Yeah, the fact that they made a press release, I think that shows that like somebody. And that's interesting because that says to me that this might have been, you know, for all the theories and about like our relationship with extraterrestrials and what, you know, if there's an elite or what people knew or how long this has been going on for. This really does seem in the way that it's handled that it could have been our government's first encounter with these type of intelligences. Because we didn't seem to have a protocol in place, or we didn't seem to know how to handle it really. And so maybe this was it. Maybe this was day one.
Well, and
You
then
know?
so they come out and they're like, "Oh, flying disc," and then they're like, "Oh, that's silly. That's fucking. There are no flying saucers. It was just a weather balloon." And then 6 months later, they go on to form Project Sign, which the original name of was, let me tell you, Project Saucer. Okay, that's when it was formed. It was 1948.
Mm-hmm.
And which eventually turned into, Project Grudge, and then it turned into Project Blue Book. We know that story. And then Blue Book came out, and then that's when things really picked up in ufology. Whenever people realized that this was an actual thing, it got declassified for a minute, and people were like, holy shit. We actually were like looking for UFOs. We were actually taking these reports seriously. And then of course that's when I believe that's when things really blew up, especially when it came to like Roswell, because it was big news. That was a big deal. And I don't know. So okay, so if you're telling me, let's just pretend for a minute the government story's real. Okay, this was just a fucking spy balloon. Why would you then turn around and go establish a whole fucking area of government just to focus on studying these things?
Right.
And then we had people who, kind of where Right Pat comes into play, because I can't not mention it. Allegedly, that's where the crash debris is. We had people come forward and say, like Oliver Henderson claimed that he's the one that actually flew. And this is a person, it's a real person that was some type of pilot for the U.S. government during that time, came forward and said that he flew the debris from Fort Worth to Wright Pat. The debris and the bodies, said that he flew them there. Another person, now this was his children that came out, but another notable pilot stationed at Wright Pat at the time was, I believe his name was, what was his name? I just remember they called him Black Ace. I can't remember his actual name. He wasn't black though. But his children came out and said that he would tell them stories of like how he saw aliens alive from the Roswell crash at Wright Pat, and thought that it was really pitiful. It specifically said it's really sad what they did to those things in order to, test them for science, and, killed them, basically tested them to death. And there's other stories. I mean, these are just, my God, this is a drop in the Roswell bucket. There's so many stories out there. It's endless. But, allegedly the debris was taken there to Wright Pat. If you guys are interested in knowing our takes and information on Wright Pat, go listen to the Wright Patterson Air Force Base episode, because we did a whole episode on it.
So I guess I didn't know that. I had heard that the aliens might have survived, but that there was no way to feed them. They died eventually. I didn't know that we had like tortured them to death or anything.
Oh, well, people, I mean, there's tons of people that say different things about them.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, sure, yeah, us testing them to death. Well, and then eventually, we had the alien autopsy hoax come out that were allegedly from those bodies found at Roswell.
That was around that time, too. But my bullshit detector went off right away with that. I never thought that shit was real.
You got a bunch, well, and that guy still says it's real, but
right.
It's not. I mean, he pulled it, and then he didn't, and then it's real and it's not, and it's not real.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we've had all kinds of claims about what may have happened to those alien bodies. The people that saw them, being pulled from the craft were describing them as being pretty fucked up, pretty mangled. So, I mean, if something was alive, it was probably let's just pretend, okay, maybe something was alive. It was probably barely alive. We probably didn't have the medical science to cure it or fix it or help it, and it probably died.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, but it depends on how it crashed and why it crashed, and that's the other thing too. Is did we ever come up with an explanation there? Was it shot down? Was there some kind of electromagnetic disturbance, and it just tanked?
That's a good question.
How do you fly? How do you fly all that way here and then fucking, I mean, that's a pretty big distance, and then you're cruising around the middle of nowhere and you fucking just run into the ground.
Sure. So there is a theory on that, and okay. I would agree with it, that the ship was actually struck by lightning.
Oh, I've heard that. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I could buy that. I mean, it seems like a really fucked up way to go. I don't think that we could shoot it down. I could see it being struck by lightning. It could have been stricken down by lightning by a bunch of fucking rookies, learning how to fly the ship. A bunch of teenagers getting their UFO license or something. Who knows? Who knows? Unless we can ask them, like, hey, what happened? I don't think, that part we'll ever know how they got shot down. They weren't shot down. I think that's pretty well known, because I think people would have known about it. Because here's the thing about it is that Farmer Mac says that that debris showed up in like the middle of June. It had been there for a couple weeks before he said something to anybody about it. It just kind of showed up, and he's like, oh, someone's garbage.
Wow.
Yeah, it had been there for a minute, and that's when he reported it. So, I mean, it's really inconsistent on when the date is, because it's a whole farm, and he doesn't check it every single day. But yeah, it had been there a couple weeks, and he had just so happened to go into town, and people were talking about UFOs, and he's like, "No, wait a darn moment," He's like, "I got some of that in my farm," and
well, that's crazy to consider too, because that means that those fucking aliens were just laying in the fucking wreckage the whole time.
They could have been, right?
Waiting for someone to find them. Like, they can't call, they can't do nothing. Like that, I don't know. You would think that if they traveled all this way, they would have some kind of communication. But who knows? Maybe they don't. But to look at it through through the eyes of an Earthman, yes, we would have communications. If your ship crashed and you were there, you wouldn't really be able to just lay kind of in the wreckage for weeks until you got dragged out and then sent to Ohio. Like, no offense. I'm just saying, like, like that seems that doesn't, that doesn't transfer into the way we would handle that situation. Like, they didn't try to communicate with anybody. Obviously, there's multiple of these craft. No other craft tried to assist. One of theirs went down. Why didn't another craft show up after week one and try to repair it or extract the people or something? Do they not?
Well,
Do they not operate like that? You know what I mean? Are
right.
they?
Maybe they don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Maybe
know.
they're
It's
just like,
weird.
fuck that ship. It's gone. We're not going
Yeah.
down there to get it and getting fucking ambushed by humans. We don't know
Or
what
they're
they're.
all drone. You know, they're not biological entities that are of individual mind. They're all high, which is something that people have said about Greys in the past. So that maybe they are hive mind, and the loss of a couple parts don't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things. Like, okay,
Right.
if we lost one ship and 3 drones, big fucking deal. Why go back and get it? It's not worth the effort, you know.
Right, and risk a confrontation because surely those humans know now that we crashed there. Unbeknownst to them, that they crashed on a fucking farm in the middle of nowhere. They don't know.
Well, that's if making their presence known was something that they genuinely care about. I mean, they might have their own agenda with this planet, and that's kind of propels them to come in and do what they have to do and leave. They don't necessarily care if anyone spots them. I mean, they don't. If they're flying around and they're flying in formation and they're spotted over the White House and they're spotted over here and they're spotted over there, that doesn't seem like they're necessarily worried about keeping a low profile. It's almost like they don't even give a shit. You know, they're there for whatever reason they're there for, and that's what they're doing. And whether or not we see them or chase them or take pictures of them or ignore them, it matters to them not. You know.
Well, and we don't know. I mean, to be fair, 1947, we don't know what that time period looked like for them. We don't know what their technology is. We just don't know, and so we don't know if maybe they were new to it and maybe that's why they crashed, maybe they were
Mm.
testing it out and we're the first fucking planet they found and then they crashed here and maybe they never came back ever fucking again. And whoever's visiting us now is not even the same fucking race of whatever that was in 40. So we don't know. There's just so much that we
Yeah.
really, I mean, we can speculate. It's fun, right? It's fun to dream, but we don't know. I
Hmm.
have no idea. Um, all we can know what people are kind of saying about it now. I mean, you had engineers, whistleblowers that came out later and said, "Yes, I saw that ship, and I've never fucking seen anything like it." There was the one guy. I can't remember his name. Oh my god! See, I need to do better on my notes. I'm sorry, you guys, but
Bob
there was one.
Lazar.
No, it wasn't Bob Lazar. Some fucking nobody that I've never heard of before came out and said that he saw that ship and that he didn't understand how it flew. It had no engine. And that's interesting because that is a claim that I've heard consistently throughout the years, is that whatever this technology is, it doesn't have an engine. And that he vowed that he is going to work until the day that he dies to find out how the fuck that thing flew. He doesn't get it. Doesn't make sense. And there's just so many I mean, there's so many people that have come out, and these, some of them, yes, okay, they're family members, whatever. Maybe they're looking to make a quick buck out of the whole ordeal. Who knows? But there's so many notable people that have an actual background, and not like Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar can't prove his background. He says the government wiped his background clean, so all of his degrees and shit don't exist anymore. That's kind of crazy. No, these are actual fucking people that we can track and see what their background is, that came out and said, yes, I saw the wreckage. Whether or not there are bodies or not, that's inconsistent. Some people say yes, some people say no. Doesn't matter. They all say, I've seen the wreckage. It was fucking amazing what it was.
Hmm.
And we can't explain it. It couldn't have been from here. They all say that consistently. We could not have made this. Nobody on this planet could have made that technology. Another claim that people made were about the type of metal that was there. They said it was weird. It was like a flexible metal, a lot like tinfoil, which is how they could see, why Mr. Brazel thought that this was tinfoil, is because it was very malleable. You can move it around, and if you were to like take it and crumple it in your hands and you let go of it, it would spring back. They called it memory metal. It would spring back to the form that it was in previously. It would take its shape back again. And they didn't really understand it. You couldn't really rip it. It wasn't, but it was thin enough to where you think you could just take it with your hands and rip it, but you couldn't. And that was another interesting claim. And kind of piggybacking off of that, what I have heard from my friends at the laundromat, as Pato likes to put it, is that here's one thing that we know about Right Pat, is that Right Pat does have a division there. They have a wing there. What they do is they reverse engineer foreign technologies. That's what they always have. That part's not a secret. So what they did was they took all this back to that lab and tried to reverse engineer it, but couldn't. And not just that, but weird shit fucking happens when they try. They continue to try to do it, and it sets everything up. So Right Pat is also very notably haunted. Like, you've seen all the ghost people, they've been there to fucking do
Mm-hmm.
these ghost hunts. What my people say is that it's not haunted. It's what the technology does. And they don't really know. So they'll fucking put it away for another, 10, 20 years. And then they'll pull it back out again and try. But they're smart enough to know not to fuck with it like that, because they don't really understand it very well. But they have it and it's there. Some of the claims that we did break down over on the Right Pat episode was when we talked about the underground tunnels and things like that, which really, there's underground tunnels there, but they say there's not. And I'm not saying that like, oh, I know because conspiracy. No, like, there fucking are underground tunnels there. I can text someone right now and have them send me a fucking picture of the tunnels, like through the air vents. They're there. They just say that they're not there. So there are places that exist on this base that they claim don't exist. Hangar 18 being one of them. There's a building 18. That's you can know about that, but they say Hangar 18 doesn't exist. Well, the rumor is Hangar 18 is underground, and nobody can go down there. There's an elevator that you're not allowed to go onto to go down there, and it goes down. That's where it goes down to the bottom, and they just continue to say there is no underground, and there is. So why the fuck are they being so secretive about that when we all know that it's true? What's down there?
Right. Well, because
There's something.
that's probably just like their. You have to deny the existence of fucking everything because that's how you shut down that conversation. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
what's under there? There's no under there.
there's
Yeah,
nothing.
but there's underground. No, there isn't.
No, there isn't. There just isn't.
Like, it's just, or I could be like, wow, we're only allowed to say, and I don't know.
And
Just
we
say
know
no.
that because of Area 51, right? How long they like literally just now disclosed it, what, in like 2013 or something crazy like that. They
Yeah.
just now admitted that, and we know, we did the episode on it. They just admitted that it exists. Well, we all knew that it did. It's no surprise.
Well, they might be operating on their own timeline, but you have to feel that there's some kind of as slow moving as this all is, that there has to be some kind of plan in place to eventually share this information with the rest of humanity, right?
I agree with that.
Like, this is not something, I don't think anyone intended to keep this secret forever. I think maybe they wanted to keep a secret until they got a handle on it, and they still don't have a handle on it, right? So they still don't know how to come out, and you want to get your story straight before you go out and you say everything.
Yeah.
They still don't fucking know. They know this much, but to be that uncertain, to be that unclear, to only share the half the story that they know might panic people, not because of what it says, but because their lack of understanding of it. To say, like, listen, we can't figure this out. God wrote a math problem he can't solve. You know,
Yeah.
people have kind of unwavering faith in the government, like this goofball that found 7 tons of gold in the fucking hills of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like thought,
Yeah.
oh, that's not the way it works.
Yeah.
you know,
Right. That's not the way it works. Yeah.
so like to come forward and say, like, yeah, we found this shit, we lied about it. Okay, we'll give you a second to deal with that. Yes, we lied, and this is why, is because we were going to wait until we could figure it out, and it's been 40 years, 50 years, shit, at this point almost 80 years. We still haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
We still don't know. We can't figure it out. We've had scientists look at it, and we've killed people to keep it a secret, but we don't know. And
We got no idea.
yeah, it leaves us with a lot of questions about faith and our own history and all this stuff. And don't panic, but this is what's going on. And
And
does
people would panic.
right, because then you'd have to explain the abduction stuff, right? Which, by the way, there's a book that came across my radar last night that I got so much shit I need to read right now, but at some point I'm gonna read it. And if it's good enough, I would like to do a show on it. But basically, there is an incident that happened in the '90s where presidents then at the time, um, President Clinton was at a convention in San Diego, California in 1994 at Coronado Island. And there was a group of people, it was this big event and there was a lot of people there. He's there, a couple hundred people are there. And an overwhelming number of people that were at this event at this Coronado Island in San Diego in 1994 were alien abductees. And they all have memories from that weekend of being abducted. And some of them even think that Clinton and Secret Service agents were there with the aliens when they were abducted. And it's like 100 people. And this is a story that I've heard before. And it just popped on my radar again last night on Twitter. I saw someone talk about this book, and I want to read the book and I want to bring it up. If it's good, if it seems like crackpot bullshit, I'll just, I've bought books like that before too. You guys only hear about the good books that I've read.
Yeah.
I've read a lot of garbage. I read a lot of weirdly racist and anti-Semitic fucking conspiracy garbage. Unwittingly, I didn't know it was when I bought it, but I got into it. And I'm like, oh, these people hate Jews. What the fuck? So, it's out there. But yeah, I mean, think about that. Like that, the abduction thing, that kind of, some people, they take their flying saucer talk and they talk about Roswell and they talk about UFOs and they don't even spend a half second considering the abduction ramifications, right? But if the flying saucers are real and the aliens are real and we are being visited by these intelligence from God knows where, and we can't figure them out, we have no control over them, and then you start to consider the abduction mythos and what that means, that makes us very vulnerable. And I know I've kind of brought that up on this show before, but how do people feel safe at night?
Yeah.
If you start to consider these stories, even if they're not all true, even if some of these people are schizophrenics or whatever, you know what I mean? What happens? What happens when Americans are, don't feel safe in their own homes anymore? Because
Yeah.
maybe they are taking people and maybe the government doesn't even know how true that is, right? We don't even know how, it's not like we're in communication with these things. They run loops, or they run fly loops around our fucking equipment. We can't keep tabs on them. Maybe they are popping in and fucking taking people and we can't say shit about it. So
Well,
I don't
right,
know.
we can't even catch them. I mean, fuck, what
Yeah.
are we gonna do? I agree.
So
I do think that the government doesn't know anything. I mean, you got whole people that think that there's, like, press conferences against them with the president and these aliens. I don't fucking think that's happening.
yeah, I think, well, maybe that's wishful thinking on our part. Like I forget who I was listening to something the other day where they were talking about the conspiratorial mindset and how we would like to think that everything's all fucked up. Oh, it was actually one of the shout out I was going to give during the news this week was for Boys Bible Study, which is my absolute favorite podcast that I'm not on. And it's a podcast about it's three guys that that they review faith-based media and they take shots at it and it's very very funny. If you guys are familiar with like Everything is Terrible where they re-edit those videos to look at goofy shit, like it's some of the guys from Everything is Terrible and they do Boys Bible Study and they watch like all the Kirk Cameron, Kevin Sorbo crazy Christian movies and they riff on them. And I love filmmaking and I love campy movies and I love religion. So this is like a sweet spot for me. So anyway, I really love that podcast. They were talking about how they're doing a deep dive on the Left Behind series because they just came out with a new Left Behind movie this month. I don't know if you knew that. And starring Kevin Sorbo, of course. And they were talking about how there's all these people that the kind of the crazy I don't want to say crazy right wing because I'm mixed like it's all Republicans, but these people that have like that think COVID was fucking manufactured or
Oh,
all this
sure.
shit. A lot of times these people kind of have these ideas because they want to impose more order on the world than there actually is. Humanity in itself and civilization is very chaotic and kind of barely holding on by a thread. And sometimes it doesn't seem like we're doing too good of a job of it. But the idea that like these bad things that happen are the machinations of people that are in control that know what they're doing is a little bit more comforting than the idea that there are people in, like, there's really evil people in control of everything and they know what they're doing, versus there's really evil people in control of everything and they have no idea what they're doing. And I think that's what I think it comes down to, is like a lot of this UFO stuff, like we would rather believe than that, Nixon was in cahoots with the fucking Greys, because that's an easier pill to swallow than we have no control over the Greys. They come and do as they please. We can't stop them. We can't even see them half the time. And we don't know if they're really taking people at night because they don't talk to us and we have no idea what they want. And the government's in charge of you, but they're not in charge of them, you know?
Yeah, I know. Like I said, I definitely agree. I think that especially with COVID, we really learned that, my God, just sharing what information we do have isn't enough for people. It creates a bigger problem by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we are. And I think that that's why most of this stuff is kept under wraps, because it's just easier and it saves a lot of face. I mean, my God, remember when COVID first started? Remember that video of the lady that fucking jumped out the window because she was diagnosed with it?
No,
You don't
I shouldn't
remember
laugh,
that?
but like, wow.
Oh yeah, people were killing themselves. People were getting COVID and just fucking killing themselves because they were so scared that they were just going to die from it anyway. And I mean, that was a thing that was happening. We know that people are prone to panicking like that because of well, big theme from last week, disinformation. It's,
Yeah.
it's one of those things. Just kind of believe in whatever. So the government came out and was like, "Hey, by the way, that Roswell thing, that did happen, and there were some alien bodies there, and we still don't really know what the fuck they are, how they work, or maybe we still have them now. I don't know. They're preserved somehow, and we just don't know what the fuck they are. They're just some species." But we couldn't talk to them because they were all fucking dead and laid there for 3 weeks out fucking in the desert and fucking New
Right.
Mexico in the summer. I don't know. And then what? Then what? Then people are like, okay, but what are they? Like, well, we just said we don't know. Okay, what do they fly on? We really don't know that at all. We've tried, but we can't. We don't understand it.
How would that? Yeah, exactly. How would going public with that information have made the world a better place?
Exactly. It wouldn't.
Especially
Yeah.
in post World War II America.
Oh yeah.
Back to the disinformation thing. One thing I wanted to touch upon real quick, because some listeners of the show have been commenting on this, and I just want to kind of, I'm not calling anyone out on the carpet, but like, there was a fire at a furniture store here in Chicago about a month ago, right? It was on the news. Wasn't that big of a deal. They showed it. Okay, this furniture store caught on fire. It was when it was really cold. It was during one of the cold snaps, right? It happens sometimes. And footage from this furniture store fire has been making the rounds this past week, and they're acting like it just happened and that it's somehow connected to the train derailment in Ohio.
Oh God.
I've seen a couple people repost the story. Motherfucker, I know I live here. Like, I remember when that happened a month ago. And
Yeah.
it was a big fire. It was a furniture store filled with wood. Like, yeah, it was a pretty big deal. And there was a lot of smoke, right? Because it's a fucking warehouse or some shit. And that was it. And then they put it out, and it's not that big of a deal. And I don't think anyone thought it was ecological terrorism. I think it could have been an insurance scam, if anything. But like, whatever, man.
Places catch on fire. It happens.
Yeah, especially when it's really cold out. So, which is a kind of weird thing to consider, but I've noticed that there's always like one real big fire when we're in the middle of a deep freeze, right?
Someone's using a piece of shit fucking space heater
Yeah,
that
exactly.
they shouldn't be using.
But to see that story and those images get recycled and repurposed and drug out into the fucking light this week,
Yeah.
and you watch it, no one ever says like, oh, this happened yesterday. The language is always very selective, and it's people trying to incite a panic with this furniture store footage
Yeah.
that happened a month ago. It had nothing to do with the fucking train derailment, but people are trying to connect the dots, and it's crazy. And they're just doing it. I think because of the fucking hysteria. So if we like manufacture that when something legitimately does happen, and that's the way we are as a culture, could you imagine how we would handle this information? I don't
Oh,
blame
yeah.
them for keeping it a secret. I mean, let me know. Just because I want to
Yeah.
know. But
Yeah,
like don't
listen,
tell
call
everybody
us
else.
at 77359 weird.
Yeah,
Let us
leave
know.
us
We
a
won't play it.
voicemail. We won't play it. We don't play any of your voicemails. I don't know if you guys picked up on this. But
Yeah,
like you can call that hotline and confess a murder. We might not even listen to
we wouldn't.
it.
No.
Let alone play it for other people. You're relatively safe. So I think we should repurpose that phone line as like a group hug. You ever go to that website, grouphug.us?
No.
Holy shit. This is in the infancy of the internet. Someone came up with this website called grouphug.us. It might even still be there. And it was just a way for people to go to confess stuff. And I would
Like
sit at
whisper?
work. Like what?
Like whisper?
Maybe, I don't know, but I would spend like all day at work, like just reading it. And some of the stuff was like really fucked up. Some of the stuff was really funny, like I used to put my brother's toothbrush in my ass and shit like that. And but some of it was like really messed up, you know. And we could use the phone line for that. So if you want to, there's no caller ID on it. Just call it.
Yeah, just call it and confess your innermost secrets.
Or if you know something about the Roswell crash, just clue us in so we know. We won't tell nobody.
Let us know. I live right down the street, you guys. Invite me to your base to come check it out. I'll leave all cameras. Okay. I just want to know. I just want to know. And either we're going to do this the easy way and you're going to just show me and I could be quiet about it, or we could do it the hard way. And one of these days I'll fucking find out. Either way, I'm going to find out. Um, no, I agree that, again, I don't think the government knows a bunch. That's why they're weird about disclosing stuff like this, because we've said it 100 times just in the past 20 minutes. People will freak out because we don't know anything. I do believe that something besides a spy balloon was recovered in Roswell. And if you just read the story at face value, if you just go and Google it real quick, that's not the story that you're going to get. It does sound very believable that it was just a weather balloon. But if you dig a little deeper and you start, don't look up just Roswell. Start Googling these people's names. I mean, start really digging into who these people were and what they ended up. Because a lot of people that were involved with this crash initially came forward later on and said, you know what? It was never a balloon. It was always a UFO.
Yeah, there were a lot of deathbed recants, and over decades later, people came through and said stuff and wrote books and got interviewed for TV and shit like that.
Right.
I do want to go back to our original topic we were talking about like 5 minutes ago and say this. Honestly, don't tell me stuff if I'll get killed if I repeat it, because I have a big mouth. So don't. I guess you could tell Asher's. I guess she's got a vault. I don't. I'll get drunk and tell people at Frogman next weekend. So
That's probably true.
I'll be like, yo, want to hear what I? Guess what? Guess what? Yeah.
Oh God. So fair enough. But yeah, dig into it a little bit. I mean, it's definitely worth revisiting, especially if you were like me. Like I said, those were like my first couple of conspiracies, man. Looking at Roswell and the Majestic 12, and oh my God, they had this whole there was Project Blue Book, but there was also something else. It wasn't Blue Beam. I can't remember what it was. It was a document that I came across many years ago, and I wish I could fucking find it because it's probably bunk. I mean, I'm sure it's bullshit, but I can't find it. I was in the dark recesses of the internet when I found this shit, and it was like a government report about an alien that they kept there, and like they went on like all these details about this alien that lived there for like 2 weeks, and then it died, and I can't find it. I can't. It was called Project something, but I can't fucking find it. If you guys know what that might be, definitely get a hold of me. I mean, just start throwing out ideas. Maybe something will jog my memory, and I'll remember what it is. But I know I remember reading that, and I'm scared of aliens. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'm terrified of aliens. Always have been. Because I know that like I am just a human, and I am powerless to whatever the fuck it is they want to do to me. So if they want to force me to peg Han Solo, well, that's what they're going to do. And just say it. But yeah, if anybody's familiar with a type of document that vaguely even sounds familiar, hit me up because I'd love to find it again. But yeah, it was fun to really dig into this more as an adult and being the person that I am. and seeing what there is. Is it possible that one of these whistleblowers came forward and then knocked down a bunch of dominoes of other people coming forward just for the clout? I guess so. Yeah, sure. People do all kinds of crazy shit on TikTok for clout. I mean, but
Mhm.
I don't think so. I just don't. I don't buy that. Again, these aren't just regular everyday people. These are people in power that eventually came forward and was like, "Hey, look, here's the actual story." So, will we ever know the truth? Probably not. Probably not. So, you got anything else
Yeah.
to say, Pato?
Yeah, one thing real quick, and then we'll hop off. I do want to give a quick plug to friend of the show, Mike Vanderbilt, will be up at Cigars and Stripes on Tuesday, February 28th, with a screening of the Stephen King Yardley Smith classic, Maximum Overdrive. So at 7 p.m. Tuesday, February 28th. Come watch the movie and eat a meatball sandwich. I'll be there with my kid, Cigars and Stripes, in beautiful downtown Berwyn, Illinois. February 28th, Tuesday, 7 p.m.
Okay. All
Maximum
righty.
Overdrive. There you go.
Maximum. That's not Tuesday. Tomorrow, Tuesday, is it?
No, it's next. It's
Okay,
next
good.
week. Why don't mention it this week's show?
Gotcha. Okay, I understand.
Right.
I just
Even
wanted
though
to
when
make
we record next week's show, I most likely still will have not gone because whatever. But if I
sure.
mention it for next week's show, it'll already have happened by the time the show airs.
And also, just another reminder, because we can't say it enough, you have a week and a half until Frogman Festival. You have only
Yes.
one more Wednesday to go before Frogman Festival. And if you're not there, you're going to be square. It's going to be a great time.
If you're not there, you better be dead or in jail. And if you're in jail, break out.
Break out and bring everybody with you to the family-friendly Great Wolf Lodge in Mason, Ohio. Bring on your convicts. Go to the thrift store. Get yourself some black vests. Come on down to the Frogman Festival, and we will be there. I mean, we're going to be there all day. It's going to be fantastic. So go to go to frogmanfestival.com to purchase your tickets because I think you better. I don't know what the limit is there, but it's probably getting close. Festival of the year. So,
right.
All right then, guys. Well, we'll see you back here next Wednesday.